never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Fine.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Earlier this past week, I believe it was Tuesday if I'm not mistaken, I talked about Northwestern and the hazing scandal in its relation to the head coach, Pat Fitzgerald. And believe it or not, before I recorded that video, I had already heard rumors that Pat Fitzgerald had been fired. But the reason why in the video I said we'll see where that goes is because I try my best to not go by rumors, because sometimes you hear something and it's just a rumor and then you give it credibility, and then later on when word comes out that it was just a rumor, you feel like a complete idiot, and then you've got to go back and backtrack and take back what you said. And there is another example of that going on right now, and honestly, I'm not really sure where it's going to lead to, but a few weeks back I mentioned here on the channel about West Virginia's basketball coach, Bob Huggins, being in trouble with some of the things he said in an interview, and then he got a DUI. Well, then there was a report that came out that he was resigning as West Virginia's basketball coach. Well, about a week and a half ago, Bob Huggins came out and said, I'm not resigning, I'm not stepping down. That email came from my wife's computer and my wife's email, not mine. So you can't prove that I wrote it, and you can't prove that I told her to write that. You can't prove who wrote that, but I didn't write it. It came from her email. So then there's all kinds of stuff going on behind the scenes now with the Mountaineers in relation to Bob Huggins. But I will say it was Monday afternoon, early Monday evening, when word came down that Pat Fitzgerald had been fired. Well, now that it's Saturday, I'm going to take it that he has actually been fired, especially since I believe it was late Thursday night, maybe early yesterday morning, word came down that the Northwestern baseball coach has been fired in relation to the hazing incident. So today here on the channel, I want to give you the top 10 candidates to become the new Northwestern Wildcats head football coach. Now, this article, I found a link to it on the Rutgers athletic website called rutgerswire.com, but it was actually written by usatoday.com, and the writer's name is Christian Dyer, and it came out this past Wednesday, a little bit more than 36 hours after word came down that Pat had been fired. Now, if you look at Pat Fitzgerald's record at Northwestern, he was there for 17 years, and he won 110 games, which is exactly 6.5 wins a year. But he's the most successful coach they've ever had. He's still only 48 years old. If we remember, back in 2006, he got that job because their, at the time, current head coach, I believe his name was Randy Walker, just passed away suddenly out of the blue, and they gave Pat Fitzgerald the job, and I think he was like 30 or 31, and he was very successful at Northwestern. Now, he did average 6.5 wins a year, but it's not like he won 6 or 7 games every year. He would sneak up and have an 8-win season and then come back the next year and win 4. He'd have a 9-win season and come back the next year and win 4. But these last 2 years in 2021 and 2022, they looked like they were absolutely clueless on offense. They spent the past 2 years looking like they did not one time have any game plan on offense. That their game plan was just go out there and run the most vanilla, basic plays in the history of all mankind. Teams that you would see like Pee Wee run, and it was just basic, simple, vanilla. And it looked like they were waiting on the other team to either make a mistake to give them an easy touchdown, or the other team to have a turnover and give them good field position, because they looked like they never had any desire to march down the field from end to end the last 2 years on offense. The top 10 candidates, according to Christian Dyer from USA Today. And as always, I'll try to make a few comments as I go. Not a lot, because I just don't think my opinion really matters. But we've got Ed Reed, Butch Jones, Jim Mora Jr., Pat Narduzzi, Brian Hartline, David Braun, Herm Edwards, Paul Christ, Jeff Monken, and Jim Leonard. Now, if I'm Northwestern, I'm not touching Jim Leonard or Ed Reed. Not that they can't coach, because honestly we don't know, but Jim Leonard and Ed Reed, as we know, are both defensive specialists. They're defensive-minded head coaches. But if you've watched Northwestern the last 2 years, defense ain't their problem. It's offense. I really don't know if you're going to help yourself when you have a good defense now, but a awful, horrendous, terribly bad offense by hiring a defensive-minded coach. All they're going to do is continue to improve your defense and not help your offense when your defense is not the problem. So even though Jim Leonard and Ed Reed are 2 high-profile coaches, I wouldn't touch them. David Braun is already on the staff. He's actually the interim coach for now. But Northwestern says they want to hire somebody by August the 1st, but they claim that whoever they hire, that this year's pretty much non-existent. It pretty much doesn't matter. So they're trying to say that if they hire somebody now, if they go out there and go 1-11, it's not going to affect their long-term future on whether or not they're the long-term head coach. In most situations, I would say in 2023, that's absolute hogwash, because we live in a microwave society nowadays where we want results, and we want results now, and we don't care if the coach won a title last year. He didn't win one this year. He's got to go. Most programs, you hire a coach that goes 1-11, going into year 2, he's on the hot seat. But considering it's Northwestern, and it's a program that only averages 6 wins a year, even with a great coach like Pat Fitzgerald, I don't think it's going to hurt you by coming in there and going 2-10, as long as the team looks like they're playing hard for you. Me personally, if I'm them, I'm going after Paul Christ, because Paul Christ was very successful at Wisconsin. Honestly, never should have been fired, but he could easily come to Northwestern and win 8 games a year. And if you coach Northwestern and you win 8 games a year, they'll build a statue of you. But I can see why they want Butch Jones, because Butch Jones was very successful at Central Michigan, and Butch Jones was very successful at Cincinnati. And even though those are two group of 5 schools, at least they were when Butch Jones coached there, and Northwestern is a Power 5 school, still the similarities are about the same as far as overall success. If he can go to Northwestern and win 7 or 8 games a year, he'll be there forever. But his first couple of years at Arkansas State, he's been terrible. So I really don't know what he's done there to make Northwestern want him. Jim Mora Jr., of course, right now is at UConn. He would easily leave UConn to go to Northwestern. Pat Narduzzi is probably one of the most underrated coaches in America. So I would definitely go after Pat Narduzzi if I couldn't get Paul Chryst. But I would definitely make Paul Chryst my number 1 candidate, followed by Pat Narduzzi. If Pat Narduzzi could have the success at Northwestern that he's had at Pittsburgh, he would do great. And I wouldn't touch Herm Edwards either, because he got fired from Arizona State because of all kinds of shady behind-the-scenes stuff. I just don't know if I want to fire Pat Fitzgerald for some behind-the-scenes shady hazing type stuff and then turn right around and hire a coach that just got fired for being shady. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What do you call it when a bunch of old men clap? Menopause. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.